Let's see if this video actually makes it online, because recently I've been recording a lot and the videos have not been getting edited. Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I'm going to be talking about nothing in particular. So, as I just mentioned, I did actually record a Woolgathering video last week. And once I'd finished talking about everything I wanted to talk about, I recognised that I hadn't really talked about the topics in a way that sounded coherent, and therefore I just decided to scrap the video. I basically woke up on the Saturday morning and decided that I was going to talk about nothing because I'd had a shower and done my hair, and basically, if you can't tell by today's hair, I have completely given up. I talk about my hair a lot. It's one of my defining features. It has been there since I was born. My mother talks about it often, how I was born with a mohawk. Now that my hairline is receding, and I notably end up looking more and more like older male relatives, some of which I don't get on with, looking in the mirror has become something that is not a fun pastime for me, which was strange coming from a former narcissist. One of the big things about not making videos, not editing videos, and just not even like watching other people's videos is that it comes with a sense of guilt and it comes with a sense of shame, because that feels like something that I should be doing, because this is to be reliable and to make sure I'm properly interacting with the people that support me and who I actually happen to like, which is also strange for me to admit because that seems like an admission of some sort of feeling towards people, and if you didn't know, I quite like to keep all of that sort of stuff close to my chest. Anyhow, that hasn't been happening because for the most part I was trying to get writing done. I've been trying to stick to this schedule of writing a certain amount of words every day from 9 till 5. Now, that did go out of the window one week in which I was feeling particularly low, and I ended up binge watching Absolutely Fabulous, which is a show that I haven't watched before, and as one of the classic British comedies, I say also as one of the comedies from the 90s, which hold a lot of nostalgia for me, who recognises now that the 90s are fast becoming vintage and retro. I decided to watch it, and also it came from this place of Absolutely Fabulous. Ab Fab used to be one of my nan's favourite TV shows. Whenever it gets mentioned, I can always remember my nan being the person who watched that, who always brought it up, who talked about it being one of her favourites. And when the revival happened in 2001, she was really excited for it because it had been one of like the staples. It must have started airing just after she'd retired from nursing. It was kind of one of the only things, one of the proper shows that she was able to get into because she actually had the time, and it was something that she could actually watch. So it's been a way of almost reconnecting with my grandmother through that show, although I've still not spoken to her in a very long time, just because of the way the world is at the moment. It's something that I never thought I'd like, and that yet some of the drama behind it and some of the stuff getting talked about reminds me so much of when I'm watching Drag Race and the behaviours of people in that show and the contestants and the way that the show is framed and the way that the contestants are framed to create sort of a narrative for the viewer. Ab reminded me of them. So it was quite good to go back and watch this, and then I ended up going and paying for the film as well on Amazon Prime because I really wanted to see how everything worked out on there. One of the strange things to come from it though is recognising certain modern shows might have either paid homage or outright stolen jokes from that show. Either way, I have managed to get back into writing now. It's been a slow process, simply because I'm writing about a pretty heavy topic, which is death. And it's for the final Doris book, and I've mentioned it a lot. I have known this part of the story was going to be happening. It's not a spoiler there, I am only going to talk about the general theme of death. But I've known this certain death was going to happen since planning Indisputably Doris. I changed the character that died, but I always knew that death was going to have to be discussed in these books more thoroughly than had been talked about in the past. I suppose Abfab really works as an escape from having to think about death all the time. I've slowed down my reading as well. I'm supposed to be reading for the BookTube Prize, and I ended up stressing myself out this weekend because I hadn't read anything. I've now finished one book that I'm supposed to read, and I'm hoping to try and get through some more and maybe acknowledge that I don't have to pressure myself so much, but that's not who I am. I haven't been reading and I haven't been writing because the writing of death ends up causing you to think a lot about death. And then I started reading another book, and for whatever reason, a general theme that seems to be in the fiction I'm reading this month, and has been for quite a few months now, has been around death. And whilst I do enjoy, well, I don't enjoy reading about death. I'm interested in seeing how other writers portray death and portray grief, having seen so many deaths in the last 28 years. It became a bit overwhelming, really, all of this death and this discussion of death. And like I'm reading it, I read An Heir to Murder as well, and I talked in my videos about that, about the death and the grief that gets discussed in there. Didn't think that my next book would be discussing grief as thoroughly as it is doing, because Our Doris is for the most part a comedy. But I've been rewatching the episodes of Dinner Ladies where certain characters have died, and seeing how Victoria Wood's done that, and seeing how you can bring the pathos into comedy to inform my own writing. I also started this new notebook for my writing, and once I got over the pressure of trying to make every page neat and tidy, I have been writing a lot in here until my arms ache due to that great wrist injury, and trying to write longhand when your wrist is feeling like it's going to make you vomit just doesn't happen. So that slowed down things a bit. There's a lot of thinking about death, and then writing about death, and then having to think about how someone at the age that Harold is would think about death, and how he's going to talk about this person dying, and it's a lot. But hopefully it's all going to work out, and I think that it definitely needs to be discussed, because it isn't something I've ever gone into. I just think every writer is writing about it in some way, basically, and I may as well do it now. It was led to some strange thoughts. One book that I was reading for the BookTube Prize, I didn't think of it as like anything philosophical at all. I was enjoying it, and then there were just small moments in it that, like with the writing of Doris, would have me thinking about death more, and have me thinking about all the things that we hold on to. And then I ended up in some very dangerous territory when I began to think about all the books I could unhaul from my shelves, because I was thinking about how I choose to keep books, and the fact that I've got all of these books behind me, and I'm starting to kind of get overwhelmed by books again. And a few years ago, when I was feeling like in a very low mood, I just started getting rid of tons of books and loads of stuff that I owned, and kind of just offloading it to the charity shop every single week until I just felt like this weight had been lifted. And now, years later, there are so many times when I'll regret not having something I got rid of, thinking at the time, oh well, if it's a book I can just get it out of the library, or I can just buy it again when I want it. Or an object, I was thinking, oh well, you don't need an object for memories. But yeah, it was a strange time, and so I was feeling particularly lucky that the shops were currently closed and I couldn't take these books anywhere, because there was one point where I was all for clearing an entire shelf of books that I decided that if I were to be on my deathbed, would these be the books that I would care enough about were on my shelves? Are these the books that I am going to be 80 years old, I mean hopefully older, and think, yes, I would like to reread this? And in some cases, there are books that I think, yes, I would like to see them span my entire life with me, and others I'm kind of like, that could go, that could go. And hopefully I can get past writing this chapter, and hopefully not so many books that I read about are going to feature death so heavily as a theme, because I am a bit tired of reading books about death. I just want something less heavy, something with a lighter topic, because whilst it's universal and it's something that we're all going to experience one day, sometimes I just think it can be too heavy and you're not in the mood for it. I tell you, after, well, how many books is this? Let's have a look. Every single book that I have read, I've only read 14 this year, every book I've read has had death in it. And and I'm currently reading another, and I know that I've got another 4 at least to read for the BookTube Prize, and they're all going to feature death in some way. And I just need a break. I need a break from all the death. I've got to write this chapter because I need this book finished. I need to get this book done, and I need to bring it out into the world. But then, originally I planned to write the Charity Shop book. I have been planning the Charity Shop novel since I finished writing the radio play in 2012. And after, well, it must have been 2013, because after the radio play got rejected by the BBC, by local radio, and by all these other places, I decided, well, I'll just transfer it into a novel. Then I watched the film The Big Lebowski, and that informed the way I was going to write the novel. So I've had the plan, I know the characters, I know the way the story is going to go, and I was going to use some of the dialogue from the Charity Begins radio plays to fuel this. I also had another idea for a book as a spin-off again from the Doris series, and those were going to be the books that came out next. However, for whatever reason, I'm not the fastest writer in the world. I have other things that I have to be doing. So whilst I can say I'm probably good for 1,500 to 2,000 words a day on a good day, some days I don't find the time, even when I'm trying to do the 9 to 5 thing, because I'm still at home, and no matter, sometimes my family will accept I'm writing, I'm trying to get work done today, and sometimes they won't, and there's a lot of housework that needs to be done in a house of 5 people. I also, like I say, books to read, and I've been it's weird when I get into binge watching a show, as I did, because I start I can't watch it. I started with that show just watching an episode every night with my tea, and that turned into watching the 2nd series and 3rd series over a short amount of time, and really needing to just my entire days were about this. And I was thinking, well, once you've got it out of the way, you've got it out of the way, and the hours that you would have spent have all been spent in one go as opposed to over every single day. That's fine. And I can't remember where I was going with that point. But those were, that is then time lost that I could have spent writing and getting the final Doris book finished. Another thing that's come up is that I have a lot planned for this chapter of Doris, and with each chapter in this book, it's been about 10,000 words. I think the shortest chapter I have is 8,000 words, and even looking at that, I need to go make some additions because there is stuff missing. With this next chapter, I have that much material that I need to go into it. I now think that even though I have removed the chapter from the end that wasn't going anywhere, I will have this current chapter could end up being the size of a novella in itself. And considering I edit as I go, you then end up with the issue of, well, isn't that too long? Shouldn't we try and employ some of that brevity and concision that we did with the very first book? But for whatever reason, whenever I make Harold concise now, or I still go through and I edit stuff once I'm changing it longhand onto the computer. I can have 3 paragraphs talking about something when I'm writing longhand, and then on the computer I'll change it to a sentence. So I have been looking at my shelves a lot more recently. Sorry, this is all over the place, but that's my prerogative. I'm thinking about books that I wouldn't mind getting rid of to try and make space for some of these behind me, or whatever. I mean, if I hadn't bought the entire Anthony Trollope collection in October, I wouldn't be having this problem now, would I? 47 books in one go. I knew then I didn't have room for 47 books. But everywhere I look nowadays on BookTube, there's someone unhauling. And one thing I love is an unhaul. But I look at my shelves now and I just think there are books on my shelves that aren't necessarily 5-star reads. And I know I don't have a star rating system, but they aren't brilliant books. They aren't life-changing books. They aren't books that when I reach an old age I'm going to pull off the shelf and go back to. Then at the same time, for the current person that I am, they're quite cozy, and the idea of some, you know, maybe having a bad day, and I have them all the time at the moment, when you're feeling a bit glum, these books are nice things to read for comfort, and they're they take a very little mental energy to get through. So I think I'm keeping them for that, as opposed to their actual literary merit. And also I'm the person deciding what literary merit they have, because we've thrown bestsellers off these shelves before. We've thrown friends' favourite books off these shelves before. We've thrown 5-star Booker Prize winning books off these shelves before because we didn't like them. So I'm pretty confident that my idea of literary merit is a bit skewed anyway. Then I had an entire other crisis last night when I was thinking about how, should I ever leave this house, I would have to unhaul some books, definitely. And I've been selling books on eBay, I should say that as well, just some Target Doctor Who books I had, and that copy of the Starless Sea I finally decided to get rid of. And I was thinking about all the books I could put on eBay, and how maybe I should put the books on eBay that I don't think are the books that I would like to take through to like the end of my days. Like, no matter how long I live, there are books on these shelves that I think are going to stay with me forever, and there are books on these shelves that I think are going to be temporarily, they're just guests here, they're renting, they're not here for the duration, that sort of thing. And do I just get rid of them now? And then I was thinking, and I recognised that, have I just written 4 books that on other people's shelves are just temporary? That they would, they've read them once, they're done, they're unhauling, they're taking down the charity shop. But once again, then that brings back the whole thing of being a writer, and once you have written your book and you've released it into the world, then you have no control over it. One thing I have always said is that I welcome reviews of any kind. Say friends or fellow booktubers don't like my books, I have no problem with them telling their viewers about it or reviewing it honestly, because that is something I signed up for. I share my thoughts about books on this channel regularly, and sometimes they are unfavourable, and I can only expect the same in return. I can't expect every single person to like my book. Similarly, I can't expect them all to dislike it either, although I will say that I do tend towards, like, everyone's going to hate something. I feel like it kind of lessens the blow, if anyone ever did, like, oh yeah, I kind of expected you to hate it, love. You still made me some money, so thank you very much. That's just an imaginary person in the room. Let's call her Sue. I don't know. So that was me at 1 o'clock last night. And it makes me laugh because I'm stuck at home. I haven't left the house in over a week now. I haven't gone for any walks down the canal. The cold weather's been doing a great number on me for my asthma, and my sister's just been going walking in other places with her dog without me, and like, I don't have a problem with that at all. I just haven't found any like wherewithal to leave the house, so then I'm just alone with my thoughts, sometimes learning Italian. Making great headway on Le più belle storia in giallo, though, actually managing to get through it and understand more of what's being said now, which is great. I still can't string a sentence together in Italian, but I'm able to read it and understand it. So yeah, is it just because I am alone with my thoughts too much that I'm thinking all these things, spending my days woolgathering and daydreaming and all that great stuff? Had I been in work or getting work done, would my thoughts have strayed so far to the point that I discredit all the work I've ever done? Who knows? I seem to have gained the ability to recognise when a writer is young, though, so that's fun. Some books I've read recently, I thought, this person has been part of a creative writing programme and they're such and such an age, and when I've gone and looked, the person has been on a creative writing programme and they are such and such an age. I think that that's something I've discussed before, how I think when you go on one of these creative writing courses, you get taught to write in a certain type of way, And if you're like me, you leave the course and you think, well, I'm throwing all that out the window because it's just ruined me creatively. And after a year, you come back to writing and you decide that you're going to throw all the rules out the window. You're going to recognise the rules are there and you're going to understand that you can break them now. And then you have these writers who don't throw the rules out the window, who do stick to it, and you end up with a certain type of story that, for me, definitely hits the marks it's supposed to hit, but it doesn't engage me because it feels too writerly, too much like a student wrote it, and I tend to look for a more considered voice, someone who has jumped through all the hoops of being a student writer and learning to write and has now decided, you know what, this is my voice is important, and I'm going to share that with the world, as opposed to someone who's been taught the way to do it. And this comes from a former creative writing student here. So what are my plans for this week? Well, I didn't plan to make this video, but I've been up since 6 o'clock. Like I say, I've read 100 pages of a book for the BookTube prize, and I am hoping to get some more of my Italian read today. Hopefully I'll finish this book by the end of March. It's only comic books, but I do like to take my time over it and just enthuse about the fact that I am continuing to learn the language. And that's me. I would apologise for the mess that this video is, but the fact of the matter is that I don't care. For the last 3 years of making these videos, I've said that I'm just going to ramble incessantly at the camera, and if someone leaves with some sort of wisdom from it, then good for them. Not that there is much wisdom from me. So if you ever spent like nearly an entire year just thinking about death and impending doom, do let me know. But I seem to have been at it for about 28 of the buggers now, so I don't think it's leaving anytime soon. I hope that you got something out of this video besides sheer boredom. If you made it to the end of this video, then well done. I should be the type of person who says to leave a word in the comments, shouldn't I? Because I'm aware that most people zone out of these videos. Yeah. Brian a Bookish mentioned about analytics the other day, so I decided to go and check myself. Yeah. Maybe leave the word boredom in the comments. And until next time, that is